I think Valve are, retaining the bulk of the money. I mean, like, so it's kind of weird, and I also don't know how they would do it because to say you wouldn't get the same drive in Counter Strike to push for like 10 million, some insane amount, because
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
driven by things that are very unique to the Dota community.
so do we really need to bump it up to 500K? I mean,
Well, yeah, I
you
think
know,
we
it's like,
do.
do you
I
think we
honestly think we
do?
do, and
Okay.
I've just been told
Right.
the ratio as
Do
well.
you
So it's
need to do it?
it's 75% Valve take and 25%
Yeah,
goes into the
sure.
pot, right? So 75-25 in Valve's favor. But here's the thing, like, look, everybody in Counter-Strike likes having four smaller tournaments over the course of a year. We
Yeah.
like having a regular season. But nobody in Counter-Strike will be comfortable, I think, with the idea of like a one-off $10 million tournament. I don't think that would particularly fly with us. I mean, again, I can't speak on behalf of the whole community, but I think what most people would prefer is like, so let's say we did raise 10 million, would never happen, but let's say we did, right? Like what the Dota community did. I think everybody in Counter-Strike would be like, every 3 months, let's have a $2.5 million tournament. And
Sure.
Okay.
I think people would much prefer that because it adds a stability to the game. It adds a circuit to the game, and plus teams in Counter Strike are nowhere near as fucking stable as any other esport. They chop and change all the time. I mean,
Okay.
one guy can be here today, gone tomorrow. That one tournament for 2.5 million could have been like his one opportunity to make bank, and then he may
Okay.
never get on the top team
Right,
again
right.
because
That's
like all
very
the weird
interesting.
internal politics.
With TI, I mean, like Dota would be the same way, but TI sort of enforces that because, like, once you're invited, you can't switch
Yeah,
rosters
you can't
unless,
switch
like,
rosters. That's true.
yeah. So this year was like the one time they made exceptions for like outstanding injuries. So that's very interesting, and that sort of enforces it from like
Yeah.
maybe
Yes, I mean,
live.
so that's an issue. I mean, what people want ultimately in Counter Strike, which is what we've never really had, is like a narrative. Like every other esports talks about it. It's the narrative. It's the narrative. You sit down, you watch LCS. It's like, oh, do you remember when CLG beat TSM and they qualified for Worlds and it's like everyone's got these fucking stories, right? And in StarCraft, oh, do you remember when this
Yeah.
happened and blah blah blah. And everyone's got this history and this pedigree. Like huge parts of Counter Strike history has been just eschewed from the record books. Like no one remembers it or no one cares. 1.6s don't consider Counter Strike source history valid. 1.6s don't even consider some of the early days of Counter Strike valid. They consider it an
Yeah.
affront
Yeah.
if you talk about particular players. And what we want is we want a fucking world tour. We want like what CPL brought to the table for Counter Strike that it did so well. It brought that narrative. It brought that story. They went all around the world and they played all of their little finals. And we were like, right, so they won that one, and now they want revenge in this one. And you
Yeah, sure,
knew
sure.
all of the guys, and we've never really had that. I think Destiny said it best. I can't remember when it was, maybe 2 shows ago. But he said, imagine if the only time you saw Agent Smith fight Neo was at the end of the film, right? And there was no build up. It would suck. And that's been one of the problems with Counter Strike. It gets viewed as like one off events, and it's like, and in the end, Nip win, right? Or Virtus Pro win. And
Right, right.
there's not a tour. There's not like an evolution of a team. There's no like back and forth. And we're starting to get that now. And I think what would augment it would be tournaments with real big, life changing money on the line. It brings that drama back to esports. Like it really would. It would bring that drama back to Counter Strike. So yeah,
All
I
right.
think
Well,
I think it would be huge if we could get something like that.
all right. Cool. I think so too. I think it'd be great just to have another esport with some
Anyway, sorry,
big
I know
content. Let's
I
wrap
waffled,
this
but I
up.
just want.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just brought Counter Strike to the table because everyone was telling me to do so. So there
No,
you
that's
go.
cool. I mean, it's definitely
But
good to talk about CS:GO.
I think
on the
it's
show
gonna
too.
only become more relevant too,
Mm-hmm.
especially as the year
Yeah.
goes on.
It's
Those events
definitely
are
growing
getting
quick.
huge.
All right, let's get to some questions. I know some people wanted us to talk about Evo, but I don't
Mm.
think many of us. Well, actually, Cody, you watched a little bit. Maybe just
I
some
caught
quick things on
the
Evo.
bare bones. Justin with the incredible read, helping propel him to that first place spot over in Marble. I know that was
Yeah.
huge. One of the things that I actually got really paid attention to, which surprised me, is this fighting game that I never even paid attention to because none of our players at Evil Geniuses played it, called Blaze Blue.
Oh yeah, Blaze Blue.
Yeah, there
That's
was like
really
a
popular.
really emotional moment where like the one of the players was like on the brink of defeat, and then like absolutely brought it back. You can check it over on the Daily Dot. Like I think it'll be in the second row by now. Um, and like he wins and he just starts crying, which I think is absolutely like a totally it's fucking Evo. I think that's probably appropriate thing if you win Evo.
The crowds, man. The
You
crowds
just
at
fucking
Evo
cry.
are just insane.
It's
from what
really
I saw.
interesting. So you see him reset, and then like you see the his opponent like start to like sort of like freak out as he's getting like really hyped, and then like at the end he just so it's fantastic. Blaze Blue, not a game I ever followed. Watched a little bit of Smash. I've never. Well, I thought the Smash documentary was fucking really great. I was never a
I can't
Smash
watch.
guy.
I'm like Richard. I'm like you with Dota 2. I can't watch Smash for some reason. I don't know why.
Someone
I'd
ran
rather
Pikachu,
watch Smash.
someone ran Pikachu way deep into the bracket,
Oh yeah.
which was pretty cool. And then he did very well. He looks like Drake. That's one of the things that happened. Like he looks like the rapper Drake. So. And he was a very charismatic guy. The one thing that I do remember from like the Smash stream was like that fucking room was filled.
Yeah.
It was so
Crazy.
insane, man. Like it was.
Crazy.
I don't know, David. What's his last name? Do you know him?
David.
He goes by like the DZ on Twitter. He took some fantastic photos.
Oh yeah,
from,
yeah, yeah. So some of those on
from-
Twitter the other.
Yeah.
Yesterday,
Just like
actually.
it was absolutely insane. Like
Yesterday there was a good one. That was like a panoramic almost picture of the room,
there's
and
one-
it was crazy.
He took one of Ricky, like with the entire crowd behind him. Like I don't know what it is. Like Evo is always so hype every single year, but like if you guys could just keep the momentum, like it would be insane. And I don't know whatever. And I'm not trying to be a dickhead, but it always tends to fall off a little bit after Evo. Everyone loses their gourd at
course.
Evo,
Yeah.
and then the momentum just like dies. Just fucking keep going, guys. Just keep being hype about these events, because like that was just such an insane showing. The room was filled from wall to wall.
Yeah. So I mean,
Yeah,
CEO was not too long ago either, right? Kind of a build
Yeah,
up to Evo.
that's always the prelude to.
Yeah.
Um,
Look at that. That's crazy.
so just keep going out to events, because it looks so fucking sick, and everyone was tweeting about it. A lot of the Twitch people went bonkers. So someone said that they heard they had 8,000 chairs for people on Sunday, and then I heard that they didn't have enough chairs for people.
That's sick, man.
So I encourage people to just like go look at some of those photos, because it's absolutely bonkers.
That's a great event.
So that's Evo.
One of these days I'll make it out to that. That'd be pretty cool. Okay,
Yeah.
let's get to some Q&A, guys. I'm sure the guys on Live in 3. Check out Live in 3 tomorrow. guys.
Isn't
They'll
Destiny
cover
about to
Evo
play
plenty.
cats?
Huh?
I think Destiny's about to play cats.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Steve, are you
that's
about to play
great.
cats?
Fucking brain aids. It's happening.
Oh my god. All right, so let's get to some questions so we can wrap the show up. Okay,
Yeah, I wanna watch that.
Scandrel has a question. There's been
Right.
offhand comments by people like Apollo in regards to the amount of StarCraft tournaments being ran. Similarly, In Control made a comment on his stream about teams being wary of sending players to tournaments when they're getting a measly 20k Twitch viewers, presumably because of the amount of tournaments occurring in the StarCraft scene. People are growing tired of it. Is the lack of downtime hurting the scene? That's a good question.
StarCraft. I don't know. This is such a complicated problem. I wouldn't. If someone was pointing a gun at my head and said, "You got to get this right, or I'll fucking splatter your brains against the wall behind you," I wouldn't say that the sole reason a lot of these tournaments are getting 20k is exclusively because of the saturation of StarCraft tournaments that there are. I think there's a lot of industry momentum behind it. That said, I've always said this. I think that StarCraft is fantastic when it's being ran by third parties. I think that to this day, it is the premier 1v1 game in the entire world.
But I don't even know if they're... Okay, so you're talking about WCS again. I mean, we're talking about that whole
Yeah.
discussion again.
I
But
don't
it
think
sounds like they're
WCS
talking about
helps.
some third parties here too, right? I mean,
What third party is getting 20K? What did Red Bull do shitty and I didn't know,
yeah, well,
or what third?
Red Bull didn't get that. Like the Red Bull viewership was somewhere between 10 and 20.
Really? Oh, wowzers! We should have brought this up then.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, from when I was watching, the finals might have been more. I don't know, but the times when I was watching it, it was somewhere in the teens, like every single time. And I think it had a lot to do with the international, quite honestly, the World Cup too. There's a lot of things, Evo, a lot of things going on at the same weekend.
Yeah.
So that's tough. But it sounds like Apollo and In Control are just talking generally, though.
I mean,
DreamHack was getting about 30, right? 30,
Yeah.
No, it was getting
don't-
more. It was getting
know
about
if-
40.
40? Okay.
Yeah. I think it peaked at 40. Like, I don't know if the argument about saturation can be made now, and obviously I respect Jeff's and Sean's opinion, no doubt about it. But I think that happened some time ago. I honestly think that what helped contribute towards StarCraft's sort of downfall was that oversaturation. Like, I don't know if where we're at now, it can really have an impact, because the consequences of what has already transpired, has transpired. We're here. We're in the here and now. And I don't think that the sort of oversaturation is the issue. I think people will tune in for a tournament if the tournament is it's run by people that they like, respect. I think if the right players are there, if it's got a certain unique twist or a curiosity about it, I think the numbers will still come out. But I think a big part of the problem has simply been that there hasn't been enough of that. That it is just like it just looks like here's another way for StarCraft players to make some money out of a game with dwindling returns. And I think the community have picked up on that.
It's just more competitive than ever, just with
Really?
other games, and I'm not so much
Oh,
StarCraft,
right,
but you know what I mean?
No,
Like,
I know.
a
Right.
lot of folks now like
I don't.
multiple
No.
games.
I don't.
It's
I don't
just-
think that's necessarily true. Okay. So I think maybe for some of the high points back in StarCraft's history, some of those huge viewing numbers, yes, maybe a part of them were casual esports fans that tuned in and were like, "Hey, I've heard about this esports thing, and StarCraft's the biggest one. I've had it rammed down my throat by PC Gamer and every other magazine that Day 9 is the new messiah, and StarCraft must be watched by anybody who's ever touched a PC." So yeah, okay, there will have been like maybe a couple of 20,000, right? Like added on to the numbers, but I think the bulk were maybe Brood War fans, like people who wanted to see how the next one was doing. Genuine StarCraft 2 fans. The game has lost a lot of its shine. It's not that people who watch League of Legends are saying, "So glad I don't watch StarCraft anymore." They never watched it. League of Legends is pulling in that number without taking from any other audience.
I mean,
I think people have just grown a little bit tired of the direction and the development that StarCraft has taken. And I think ultimately that's what it boils down to, because people come out the woodwork when there's a good tournament.
Well, I think it's a combination of a lot of things, but one of the things that we can talk about also is that this past weekend's a perfect example. There was just too many things to watch. I couldn't even watch it all. It was like impossible.
Do you honestly think that? Because
I can't watch it all.
There's an argument that maybe the International did. There's an argument because, again, everyone in esports has the International rammed down their throat. If you don't,
but we
watch
just talked about DreamHack 40,000, right? And there was nothing
Right.
going on that weekend.
Okay.
Other than DreamHack with the other.
So maybe that's what I'm saying. So maybe there's an argument for the International. But if Sean and Jeff are talking in generalities and not just specifically Red Bull, then we need to look at, more often than not, on an average weekend, a StarCraft 2 tournament, which does happen, isn't clashing with anything. It's just that it's not particularly spectacular. It's not that it detracts from anything else. It's just that's the audience you've got to work with right now, I think.
Well, here's another good example is this weekend.
I am
and DreamHack Valencia on the same
That's nuts.
weekend. On the same weekend as TI4. What?
Slit your throats, boys. It's over.
I know,
I love
I don't even
Adabisi
get
to
it.
death, but Jesus
I don't
Christ,
even get it.
gentlemen. Holy moly.
That's like last year with WCS was already bad enough, like having all the season finals on the same day, same weekend as TI2.
Yeah, TI did a little switcheroo this year. I think a lot of people were thinking they were going to plan it around PAX again.
Okay, so maybe it wasn't
Yeah,
as much.
yeah. I don't think any people in their right mind sat around with you got a bunch of esports geniuses around, and they sit around like at a table of their peers, and
Yeah.
they're like, I think we can fucking take TI this year, boys. I don't think anyone did that. I think
Oh
it
my
surprised a
God.
lot of people. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
so-
I don't know what it is about StarCraft. I think WCS has been tremendously. I don't even fucking know. I think third party.
It's been a
I
failure,
miss.
dude.
Yes. Okay. Why not? Why not, Richie?
No, but
You're
I mean,
right.
Come on.
Yeah.
But yeah,
so we've talked
that
about this
doesn't
ad
help.
nauseum. We've already, it's.
Yeah, I don't.
We
I
know
don't
it's
fucking
heard it. Okay, so
force the point, but it's been
Yeah.
a fucking huge failure, dude.
I guess that does the StarCraft scene need an off season? Let's just kind of
Refuculate.
rephrase it as this question.
They
Do we
get a
need
little
an
bit of it. They had it last year. Here was the thing, right? So
Really?
after the WCS
When?
finals at BlizzCon, a lot of people take that winter off. Most third parties take that winter off.
Dude, there's
No,
home
it was 2
stories
years ago. It was 2
all
years
in
ago.
That
1 year ago,
phase.
like we had the. But here's the thing: like when we come back this spring, there's not a new patch. Was it
Dude, there were
like
plenty of tournaments.
Jesus
and
Christ? I can't even remember. Remember,
2
like when
years ago we
everyone
had
was
a
like,
break. 2 years ago
everyone
we had
was
a
so
December,
yeah, exactly. They're
or January
so
break.
excited to fight over
Last-
like who gets to broadcast Heart of the Swarm first, and then it saw that bump. But like next year, there's going to be no expansion.
Well, it doesn't even matter. Last year there was no break. Last year there were like tournaments running through December, January. There was
What ran
literally
in December and January? Like
Home Story did, and then there was
Home
another.
Story.
There was another one too. Because I remember thinking, "Oh my god, I kind of want to take a break from shows, but I can't. Like I couldn't even take a break like from any of the shows." So
I feel like Home Story is sacred in a weird way. Home Story will always get
Yeah, totally.
20 to 30,000 people watching forever. They know they can
And
run that twice a year and
Total
just get that.
Biscuits hit upon that in a SoundCloud thing he released, where he's like, "Look, it's the novelty of what it does compared to everything else," and that's my point. I don't necessarily think it's an oversaturation issue. I think it literally is just we've got to a point where that is the base audience for a regular StarCraft tournament. And if you don't do anything above or beyond, or it's super exciting or super hyped, or it's got a different format, people aren't. That's it. That's the number. That's the viewing number. That might change. I imagine when they release the next expansion, we'll see what happened last time with Heart of the Swarm. You'll get another spike again, but eventually,
but we are seeing StarCraft tournaments a lot of weekends in a row, and it's not
I
even
watched
WCS.
Mouse Sports play some fucking like team that I think was all substitute players on Hitbox today at 15,000. It was like Counter-Strike on like a fucking Tuesday on Hitbox. It's crazy.
Yeah.
These numbers, it's just bizarre. I think one of the things
that's
still,
what I was going to say. I cast like a fucking small CS:GO tournament, the Scan CS:GO Invitational, which had like, I don't know, $1,800 prize fund or something. And the final, I couldn't believe it. We cast to 30,000 people.
Sure, yeah.
Right? So let's put that in perspective. And there's an online CSGO tournament all the time. Like, you fucking throw a dart and you'll hit one. You know what I mean? They're happening all the time. That audience is growing.
Okay,
People are
so-
curious. People want to get into it. The major tournaments have driven an audience to watch smaller tournaments.
Right.
StarCraft 2 right now, it's just like, that for me feels like it's the base number. And if you want to get higher than that, you've got to make it appeal to a broader demographic than just the StarCraft hardcore. I know that might be hard for a lot of people to accept, or the people who haven't gone off to Hearthstone anyway, right? But the reality is that those are the numbers. That's nothing to be ashamed of. It doesn't make it dead game. I joke when I say about that. It's got a very healthy, passionate, intelligent, well-informed community. The game's still going to be here and still doing what it's doing now. I would say in 3-4 years from now, untouched, and it's still going to have high points like DreamHack, like Home Story. I think if we had an off season and we agreed, right, no tournaments for 6 months, boys, I don't think you immediately get a 100K in the first tournament after an off season.
Yeah,
I don't think it happens like that. I think this is the audience we've got, and we should be happy because it's doing a lot better than some other fucking games. So
Yeah. All right.
that's my take on it.
All right.
they're a
that's-
very engaged community too, which goes a long way.
Yeah.
Like it's the easiest thing in the world is to say like, let's look at this stream's concurrent numbers and then we compare this to everything else. But John's been on the show and has insisted before that we're like, listen, man, like it's very easy to sell the StarCraft community as opposed to other games. And John is the kind of person who, one, I presume, is has the sort of like overall gaming clout to pick whatever the fuck he wanted to do, right? And then I also think he's just a smart enough person to make the smartest decision. So selling to StarCraft, he was typically a little bit older, maybe easier than some regards.
All right. Well,
yeah.
Let's move on to the next question.
Yeah.
One of my alts asks, did you guys catch any of the
Wait, so
summer
what
games?
number was it? What number was it?
It's CDXX. What is that? 500 and... Oh, God. What is that? I don't even know. 570,
It's code for suck dicks.
I think. I think D is 50. I don't even remember.
Yeah, DS50.
Yeah. So 570. Did you guys catch any of the Summer Games Done Quick event? Do you follow the scene or watch speedrunning streams?
I only watch the ones that are super duper popular. I watch a little bit of that event just because it's so big. But typically when it comes to speedrunning, I'm watching the cats that run Mario 64 because that's like the game that I played and I understand. But otherwise, I don't dive super deep.
I interviewed a speedrunner at DreamHack, a group of speedrunners, and they were telling me all this shit. The game some of them play, you just can't believe it. Like no one played it at launch. Do you know what I mean? Like back in like '92 when it came out, like some obscure fucking game, and you're telling me you've got like 20,000 people watching you do a fucking speedrun of it on Twitch. Like how the fuck? Makes no sense. But yeah, it's an interesting community.
Totally.
I think what I like about it is it kind of gets back to the esports roots, back before multiplayer and competing against people, back when you competed based on times or high scores. And that
you can
was
relate
how you
to it
decided
too.
who was the best.
That's the best part of it, right? Like all those games they play, we all played them. We all know how hard it is, what they're doing there, so we can all appreciate it. I try to watch it when I can. I can't say I follow it like really closely, but whenever they have the big events, I definitely try to tune in for some of it.
But unfortunately, look, my schedule's pretty full. I'd like to make room for more of these things.
Oversaturation, man. Esports.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. But I think it proves my point. Like, there's not people out there that are going to be like, oh well, maybe I'll move over onto this because it's a trend now, and I will leave behind the games that I truly love because this is more trendy. You just don't do it. There's not enough hours in a day, so speedrunning will have to stay on the shelf for me.
All right, Listward asks, last weekend a lesser-known tournament was run during the EVO International Red Bull Battlegrounds, lauded by the community as the prequel to the Destiny 1 tournament, the WrestleMania
WrestleMania
Championship has been making waves in the StarCraft 2 community. It was fully run and sponsored by Final Fury, by the StarCraft 2 community, and casted by international talents Healer of Pains, Brolaball, and myself. Do you think we need more grassroots, community-driven tournaments like this to drive up the standard of competitive StarCraft 2?
I mean, we've kind of touched on some of the points.
Channing, I want to hear you field this one, man, because
Do I think we should be more grassroots community driven? I think generally speaking, it's always good to have community events, and obviously NA ones are great. We've seen guys like TB, even other folks running them. Base Trade TV, I think he's even run some. Fear Dragons run some, and I think overall they're good things. For you to expect it to be like super successful from a viewership standpoint, I mean, I think that's going to be very difficult right now to even get that type of reception, just because people want to watch certain players, whether it's the top players in the world or it's because it's their favorite players for whatever reason. And if these community-driven tournaments happen to involve them, then yeah, you might be able to see some viewership. But if it's not, if it's just like NA players, ladder warriors, and that sort of bit, battling it out, I think it's great to do, but just don't have just huge expectations for viewership. That's kind of the reality of it. But keep doing them, man. Keep doing them. Keep the fight on, man. Keep doing it.
I don't know how dependent the development of any scene is necessarily once it's established. Like certainly in the beginning, community tournaments are what grow any scene. If you you don't have them, you don't end up with a scene. Right now, though, I mean, I think they're not superfluous, but they need to appeal to a very specific sort of niche within a scene, if you like, to sort of gain any traction and gain any attention. From everything I've read, I think WrestleMania has done this, and I think more community events, brilliant. You do expand slowly but surely the base of people that are interested in competitive gaming, in any particular game. So they're good, but I would certainly say at this point for the development of like StarCraft 2, like they're not essential now.
I want to chime in though and just say like you should just do what the fuck you think you like and that you do well. Will this make you rich? And will Sundance have you on speed dial after this tournament? No, probably not. But I think about the SC Reddit Invitational like 4 years ago. So I want to think about like the volunteer staff that worked on that. And we were, we hit between 10 and 20, and it was actually pretty successful because StarCraft was more popular at the time. But like the folks of volunteers that worked on that I worked on that, and then I ended up having full-time work in esports shortly after that. At a BC, same thing.
Yeah.
Well Played still fucking exists. Like the crew that ran that eventually became Well Played. I think at least 2 of those folks go and work at Twitch now. If you got the time and the energy, just do it because it, yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. You'll get to meet more people, and then if you do a good job, you would just be surprised by how many people in esports are doing really bad jobs and how eager folks are to replace those with people doing good jobs. So just do it if you want to do it, man. And also with a name like that, man, just fucking go to town. You should get a job just for whoever thought that name up. So.
All right, so let's do a few more. Cans PL has Last Shadow making a video response to all the hate pouring into SHC because of the XJ9 announcement. He's trying to justify XJ9 actions, saying he was 16 at the time, now he's 18, so he has a clean slate. I don't think people can change so much in 2 years, especially when he was acting like this for such a long time. Why you still haven't discussed the fact that 2 Brazilian League of Legends teams have 2 Korean players each?
Yeah, fuck that. It's old news anyway. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Right.
So what is the question here?
I think what he's asking is what we think about Last Shadow, basically trying to justify XJ9's actions.
Was this the kid that Destiny had the talk with?
We talked about last week.
We talked about him last week. I mean, look, okay, so I don't think the intention of the Last Shadow video is to effectively justify what XJ9 did, because I don't think anybody really can justify BU 16 or not, to take an underage girl to take nude photographs of her you've been sent in confidence and put them on the internet for everybody to see. It's a fairly deplorable act. There's no really getting around that.
Yeah.
And you can say I did it when I was young and stupid, and as I've said, I don't think the actions that you do when you were young and stupid should dictate the rest of your life, because we all do it. So I think what Last Shadow is trying to say is at 18. Okay, so if this was law, I think the point he made in the video, because I didn't watch it, was that if this was a matter of law and you did something as a child and it was a misdemeanor, because there was no legislature about revenge porn until recently, and it's only in the state of California still where it's illegal.
Wow. Okay.
Now, if you did something when you were 14, say, or as a kid, and it would go on your juvenile record, when you hit adulthood, that's pretty much sealed. How it works in America is it's sealed. Yeah, and the slate is effectively clean. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the point he was trying to make. Now, I'm not saying I necessarily agree or disagree with that point, but I understand why Last Shadow is sympathetic, because let's not forget, this is a guy who got crucified for tweaking maps in Brood War when he was like 12 or 13, and he carried that weight around his neck like a fucking millstone, ever since. I mean, the community was really unforgiving about that for some reason, and this was not.
They were not fight about that last week on Twitter, like just last week.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't miss that. Wow.
They were non-competitive games as well, Cody. I don't think he ever did it in a competitive match. Like, not for money.
I just knew that they went back to. They were fighting on Twitter about it last week.
Yeah. So you can see that people haven't forgiven him for it, and I think what Nick has done is, he's identified like, holy shit, that happened to me. Like I did some dumb stuff. I mean, nowhere near on XJ9's level. I mean, like literally, I can't believe anyone gives a fuck about it because it's like everyone's hacked in Counter Strike, like at least once, right? Like give a fuck, you just move on. If you get caught, yeah, there's a bust thread, you deny it, say it was your brother, and you just get on with life, and that's it. And then no one cares in 2 years because you can actually play at a LAN. Now, I think he's seen what's happened with XJ9. He's identified it a little bit and thought, you know what? What he needs is a friend to help legitimize him, which is probably why he's helped bring him into Super Hot Crew. And also just to point out, look, we all are capable of doing crazy shit. And I got to be honest, and this is a point I've made several times whenever something like this comes up. My generation was super lucky, right? And certainly your generation, Chris, because they didn't even have television. But my generation, was super lucky because I did a bunch of fucking dumb shit when I was growing up. You better believe it. You name it, right? Like I did the dumb shit. Now, there was no fucking internet, let alone Facebook or Twitter or, Reddit, any of that bollocks to basically document every time I fucked up or acted like a retard.
Yeah.
It's not there. So, imagine being like someone like XJ9 and you do something stupid. And again, I'm gonna go on record as saying I do find what he did deplorable. But let's say that it was something else. Something that was just really dumb. Okay, here's an example. There was a news story in the papers just the other day. A teenage boy killed himself because there was a video of him. He got caught masturbating in a school toilet. Someone filmed it. Over the top with a phone, and they put it on the internet, and this was a guy who was pretty popular and certainly no history of depression or anything like that, and almost within a week he went to having no friends, feeling socially isolated, feeling depressed, and he killed himself and left a note to his parents saying that he felt his life was over. Now, in this culture, we've got to be very careful about who we demonize and what for, and that's not to say we shouldn't say posting nudes is bad, because it is. And I'm certainly going to say that it is. And I think it's a very extreme example of stupidity. But I think we've got to qualify that. How far are we willing to go to demonize people? I mean, it's already a case that he can't even get a job in the game he's passionate about. He can't play the game he's passionate about. He can't stream on Twitch. He's not allowed. That he's banned because Riot requested that he was banned. Riot have specifically said to Super Hot Crew since last week, he can't come to any LCS events. We don't want to see him there. I mean, this guy is being penalized, and maybe he should be prosecuted. Maybe he should be publicly flogged. I don't know, whatever your particular prerequisite is. But I also do believe in second chances. I think that should come naturally to everybody unless you're perfect yourself. So I wouldn't hate on Last Shadow too much for effectively coming out and defending him. I think anyone who can empathize with what he's gone through would be inclined to do the same.
Yeah, I mean, you almost have to expect Last Shadow to come out and defend him, actually. Like, it would have been even worse for them not to say anything. To not make any public statements. So, yeah, I mean, I think, I think a lot of things that Last Shadow said, too, is like, trying to talk about how good XJ9 is, too, and how he's helped them to this point.
Yeah, I mean,
with just their mid, right? So
on that video, he said as well that they'd spoken with a psychologist, right?
Yeah.
And the psychologist had assessed his suitability and everything else. It seems that they're trying to move this forward. I still think it's a ridiculously bad idea. I think if Super Hot Crew had any sense whatsoever, and this is for XJ9's benefit as well, this is for Joseph's benefit as well, they should absolutely cut him loose, because this is the attention's not going to go anywhere. They're trying to not interact with the media, and it's only going to get worse, and everyone who comes out and defends him is going to get some of the same treatment. There's definitely a middle ground. You can't absolve him totally for what he did, but equally hounding him until he's feeling like he can't show his face on the internet again isn't the way to go either. And we need to find a happy medium. So I would like to think people wouldn't be too harsh in condemning Last Shadow on what he did.
Okay, let's get to one more. Please talk about YouPorn wanting to sponsor esports. From Junus.
This shit, it's crazy. So
okay, first off, was it serious or was it just
It's very serious.
Was it a play just to get attention? which they
these
accomplished.
numbers are these numbers hitting what is probably like so a YouTube a YouPorn sponsorship is interesting because like if you buckshot esports on the whole, right? If you just set this tweet out as a feeler, like the amount of attention this fucking got YouPorn.
That's what I mean.
Even if it was
just
a joke, whatever marketing person like said this is a joke, like is over there at the YouPorn offices with his feet up on a table and then something else out on his lap, just fucking enjoying the attention. Like I mean, like he probably looks like a
Making
genius,
more
right?
content, right?
There's so much shit in esports. I forget this. Brazers did something maybe a couple of years ago. They did sponsor or didn't sponsor someone, and then a couple of leagues said that like, well, we won't fucking deal with this. You know, the interesting thing is like if I'm recalling the 60,000 page League of Legends handbook. You know, there's no way that a LoL team could have a porn sponsor. There's absolutely no way.
It actually says
an
specifically in the contract you can't.
Yeah,
you can't have any pornography advertised on apparel or anything.
Yes, I knew there were like no cigarettes. Alcohol was off limits too. Dota's go all in too, but then it becomes a question of, you know, if I'm Evil Geniuses, right, and like, you know, YouPorn comes to me and they're like, we'll give you $500,000 for this year, just ham it really up. And then two sponsors come to me and they say like, hey man, if you have, because like they ask, especially with an account like this, Big Alex Garfield would go through every single sponsor he had and said, is this okay? And then if a couple of them said no, you just got to leverage you got to figure out how important that relationship is, how much the money is. And then you know, at the end of the day, it just comes down to what's best for your business. I think in the next couple of years there'll be a porn sponsor.
Right. I mean,
so we're far from it.
Let's fucking knock on the door and ask if Ronnie Reality is at home. Okay, right. So there's a bunch of assholes ever since this whole fucking debate came up. A bunch of assholes are peddling this myth. No one will want a porn sponsor in esports. Why? Why would anyone want it? Well, okay. So everyone, loads of people have expressed interest, and the people that really are expressing interest are the mid, you know, it's kind of the below the top tier, the sub top tier organizations who will do anything for a bit of publicity and to maybe get a one-off cash injection. YouPorn are absolutely serious, by the way. I know because I'm scheduled to interview them. And I got a lot of good questions to ask them, no doubt about that. But this is a very complex debate, and again, I don't think it's one that we're ready for in esports. Like seriously, I think we're going to struggle to find the right level as a collective community. Okay. So Scoots, our good friend Sir Scoots, did a great tweet. He said we should debate what is worse for you: too much porn or too many energy drinks. All right.
Huh? That's great. Yeah,
two fucking shades. Scott does it again, right? Sure. Scott does it again. So here's the thing. If we're talking about it just on a physiological level, you know, apart from maybe a few friction burns, energy drinks are worse for you. Of course they are. But what we're not really considering, first of all, is that this is an industry that's populated by young people. There's an increasing amount of studies, and I know about this because my girlfriend works as a social worker and specializes in child protection. So it's very much at the forefront of my thinking. There's a lot of studies that show that when juveniles are exposed to pornography, and it doesn't even need to necessarily be violent pornography, okay, it can just be, you know, your regular common or garden pornography. If they're exposed to it and underage, there is lots of studies that actually show this can lead to lots of psychological impact. You know,
whoa!
in later life.
Did I come back just in time for the bullshit hour?
Yeah, you certainly did.
Where are those studies?
I thought you beat cats.
No, I'm about to
He
play
is a
now.
cat.
Right. No, dude, that isn't bullshit. You can fucking just Google that, dude. Like, seriously, pornography when exposed, like, especially to minors. Why do you think we in the UK have got all these super strict porn filters all of a sudden, and now you have to opt in to pornography with your internet service provider here in the UK? That's on the basis of those studies, Stephen. So those studies are real. I'm not saying we should necessarily take them as complete fact, but they are scientific studies that were conducted by respected and peer-approved scientists.
Hold on. Wait, so what's the claim that watching pornography does what to you?
Well, that it can have, right, if a minor is to consume or to be exposed to pornography, it's effectively a type of harm. It's a type of abuse, and it can lead to psychologically damaging factors. Which can take on a range of psychological impact. I mean, you would have to take it on a case-to-case basis, but certainly there's case studies that show, for example, I mean, some people get sexual dysfunction from it. That's at the minor end. Other people find it very traumatic.
I have to see the studies. There's no way.
True.
That's like. There's no way. Dude, I don't believe it.
Well, I'm sorry that you don't believe it.
Where's the studies?
I didn't
what
know.
The fuck?
Well, I didn't happen to bring my briefcase with the fucking, these studies definitely happen because our legislature, which we've got in our country now, is predicated on those studies. There's no getting away from the fact that one of the things that often comes up in social work is when children have been exposed to inappropriate sexual activity, and that extends to exposure to porn. Unfortunately,
that's a huge thing. Exposure to inappropriate. So that includes what, like molestation and like sexual abuse, and also you just kind of.
No, I'm not lumping it in there. But for example, like being exposed to, I don't know, having to watch your parents screw on the couch. Which again isn't beyond the realms of fucking possibility in some of the fucked up families and estates around Britain. You can't tell me that's healthy for a kid to be exposed to. Now let's extrapolate that and say that why not? Are you really asking me why it isn't healthy for a minor to be exposed to watching their parents have sex? I'm talking, like prolonged. I'm not talking about the old innocent walk-in.
You live in the United States right now? Because you sound like an American. What the fuck?
No,
it's fucking.
Dude, I'm not saying I agree with
this. It's where we came
from.
This sounds like some
studies point to this. I am saying studies have pointed to the fact that it can be traumatic to children. What do you want me to do? Do you want me to discount based on the fact that I'm a large consumer of porn? Do you want me to say?
I would have to see this. I would seriously doubt that these studies. It sounds more to me like there might have been like some preliminary findings that there might be a correlation with minor children watching porn, and possibly later in life. Like, there's no way these are concrete links. Like, I would bet you cash money right now that there are no concrete links in a peer-reviewed journal that explicitly states that children that watch this are at a significantly higher probability of developing something psychotic. There's no way.
Right, whether or not you agree or disagree with the concrete nature of the studies, they've been peer approved, they're scientific, and they've been deemed important enough and of enough significance for our government to act on them and to bring in a new opt-in facility where an increased parental controls to avoid exposing minors and young people to pornographic material. Now, this is only a side issue. I can't even believe we're getting hung up on arguing about that, because that is just a fact of what happened, and I'm not prescribed to it one way or another, but generally I will err on the side of going with the scientists. I'm old-fashioned like that, I guess, but whatever. I mean, when it comes to psychology, nothing's an exact science anyway, right? But still, it was deemed important enough to create legislature about. Now, in that climate, and this was the point I was making, Stephen, before you returned.
Sorry.
In that climate, no, it's quite all right. Welcome back. In that climate, how can a pornographer, a legitimate and legal approved pornographer, come into an industry that's populated by young people and expect to sponsor a team? I mean, the countries that are involved in esports have very different ages of consent. It's 16 here in the UK. If I was to sleep with a 16-year-old, I mean, it'd be gross no matter what now, right? But if I was to sleep with a 16-year-old in America, I'd be a pedophile. They're underage. It's 18 is the age of consent. Over here, it's game on, apparently. So, I mean, so you've got that. So where do we draw the line about, the age limits on pornography? So there's a huge minefield like that any pornographic distributor or manufacturer would need to cross before they could sponsor a team in our particular industry. And I agree with Cody. I think it will happen, but I think it's not just as cut and dry as like, oh, cigarettes are bad and energy drinks are bad, and so let's get you porn splattered over everything. And I've always said I'm a liberal. I've always said I think porn is unfairly stigmatized. I think grown adults should be able to watch whatever the fuck they want. and if the porn's produced in an ethically friendly way, great. Game on, right? Like I would be lying if I said I didn't sit here and masturbate like a safari chimp, like anyone else who works from home. Of course I do. But the point is that this is an industry populated by young people, and we've got to be responsible about what sponsors we bring into it.
All right, well said, man. Well said.
All right, I'm gonna play Cat's Not Rip. I love you guys.
All right. Well, let's wrap up the show, guys. Let's do some shout outs and
play like you want a porn sponsorship, Steven.
It's like play like a chip in the safari.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm actually I'm rustled. I missed this conversation because I'm in talks with that, and there's like so much that I have.
Oh, here you go.
You're in talks with that.
Dude,
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It was even on. It was even reported on Forbes. I think there's something on Forbes about it, which I'll link you to now. We won't have time to debate it, but there you go. I did some cursory googling, Stephen, and imagine I found something. Go figure. So yeah, you
it's
can.
Like this
you can
is
see that
it's like the most. First of all, using the argument that your government has those porn filters or whatever, it's a terrible argument because you're literally like the only country that does that. Secondly, it sounds really American to me. I keep using it as an insult. Maybe, but to watch a game like StarCraft where you watch like Marines getting blown up and then you see like the pools of blood and shit and like that's okay and we can watch that and there's like nothing bad there because we know it's
I'm
a game.
with you.
But then like if
Violence
there's a porn
is worse than
sponsorship,
sex. I
all of a
agree.
sudden it's like, oh my fucking god, there might be titties on the screen. Like what the fuck? Like this is evidence of the moral decay of society. Like that's like so fucking crazy to me. Like I don't know, that blows my mind.
But anyway, look. Here's what I'm saying. Right, like it doesn't necessarily matter like about my own personal feelings about it because I agree with you. I think there's a choice between
I'm sorry.
exposing.
I'm
Yeah,
not
no
trying to
worries.
cut you off. I love you. Okay,
No. It's cool. It's cool.
Nice.
Best of luck in the
Okay.
game. But I
We'll
would say,
continue the talks. We'll continue the talks next week.
Yeah. If you have to expose a kid to either violence or sex, I don't know. Like if you had to, for the purposes of some demented experiment, I'd probably say show him a fucking porn video over a video of someone getting beheaded, as James from ESL likes to watch. Good old Knigget. So yeah, I don't know. This is what I'm saying. It's a truly complex issue, and I think it's not just as cut and dry as like, oh hey, what you're a prude if you don't like porn or whatever. There's a lot of ground to cover with it.
All right, let's wrap up the show, guys.
Yeah.
We'll continue the porn talk, given that Destiny's in talks with them. That's interesting. But Cody, do some shout-outs.
So this weekend, if you want to look at really sick TI content, I encourage you to look at the Daily Dot. I'll be leaving Thursday morning. I'll be doing a lot of interviews with players. Daily Dot tends to focus on human interest pieces, so I think there might be a lot of unique stuff that maybe you don't get on other websites. We primarily, and by primarily I mean exclusively, do text. If you're looking for video content, I do have to give a tip of the hat to my old friends over at On Gamers. I think Cyborg Matt has done a great job with his TI coverage thus far, so I encourage you to check out everything on their YouTube channel. And you need to go to YouTube to look at it because they can't post on Reddit. I also have an announcement in my never.
Is it a divorce?
That's
Yeah,
not even funny.
it was
Because of that mustache.
It was quick.
That's how I'm going to meet ladies. I'll be doing contracting work for. I mentioned them earlier. I'll be doing contract work with Hitbox TV, so I'll be streaming over there here pretty shortly, and then it should be pretty interesting. I think their product has a lot of really interesting things. I think some things that they do better than Twitch. I think a lot of things that they don't do nearly as well as Twitch. But I'll be working with them at least on a part-time basis here for a little bit, so you'll probably see me mention them on Twitter. I encourage you to check them out. They streamed maybe to 15K people today doing Counter-Strike. I think it's cool. So that's that. So I'm sorry if I badger you about them on Twitter, and we're Twitter friends. So that's that.
Richard.
Yo, I'll make it quick because obviously I've gone past the 60% zone again. Just before I go, because I think this is kind of important. So I want to give a shout out to Dr. Jill Manning. I've been Googling while Cody was talking. So Dr. Jill Manning confirms that the harm to mental filters from exposure to pornography at a young age can be, there's 6, and she lists them: emotional trauma, having sex earlier, desiring and pursuing sex apart from emotional attachments, antagonism toward being married or having a family, higher risk for sexual compulsions and addictions, and believing that deviant sex practices such as group sex, bestiality, or sadomasochistic activity are actually common. So there you go. That's from the study called Exposure to Pornography, the Effects on Children. It was a scientific study. I'm not talking out my ass. Get fucked. Anyway, okay, so back to my shout-outs. Yeah, just want to shout out to everyone who tuned in to the Unfiltered. I noticed the numbers dwindled as we were talking about Dota 2. Maybe Cody was right. It is a dead game. I want to shout out to you, Chris. You run a good show. I want to shout out to Destiny. I think it's great that he's still playing, still trundling away, and is about to play somebody else. He just keeps winning. I love him so much. Best of luck at WCS. And again, great foil to have debates with. Cody, really happy you got that Hitbox deal as well, dude. They're good people over at Hitbox. A little crazy, but I think you'll fit in there.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Daily Dot for having the balls to publish the stories other publications don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole. And if you're serious about esports, I recommend that you truly support the Daily Dot's esports section. I'm writing over there for a reason. They're great people, and they are going to produce bigger and better content than what they're already doing. So support them. And I'm going to have an audio podcast. So for all the people out there who want to listen to me even more than what I talk on Unfiltered, what I would say is, I'm going to have an audio podcast. I don't really know how I'm going to distribute it yet. It'll probably be on iTunes. It's boringly called the Richard Lewis Esports Podcast. I'm going for a Joe Rogan kind of theme. And I'm hopefully going to record the first one tomorrow, and it's going to be even further about this hacking issue with League of Legends. I'm actually getting one of the hackers to come forward and talk anonymously on a podcast.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
So really hoping that's going to be cool. Hopefully, fingers crossed, he still does it. But we've also got a security analyst on there as well to talk about some of the things. He had some explicit knowledge about Riot, so that should be good. I've also got one set up with some StarCraft 2 content creators as well. And, hopefully Winter's going to do one. I know we wanted to get him on the show today, but we didn't have time.
We're going to do it next week. We'll do it next week.
Yeah, we'll do it next week. So, there's lots of good stuff coming there. Follow me on Twitter. And yeah, peace out. Hope you enjoyed it.
And I'll finish things off by thanking you guys, of course. 3 of you guys for doing the show with me, and each and every week. Richard, keep writing. Both of you, Richard and Cody, keep writing. Keep making these amazing pieces. And glad people are starting to, I guess, give you some love. Love that you've been deserving for a long time, Richard, particularly. So great stuff. And,
I forgot a shout out. Sorry, I hate to interrupt your shout outs, but I want everybody online, if you haven't already done it, I want everybody to Google Esteban Winsmore. Esteban Winsmore.
What?
Right? Just Google. They're the funniest videos on the internet. It's basically a dude who goes and fucks with people who play that
I've seen that
game.
guy.
Right.
We play Second Life.
Yeah.
Oh my god! If you haven't watched them, watch them, because I've been creased for fucking weeks. Like, he fucks with these guys, these crazy furries. It's so funny, and the guy who does them is a genius. So yeah, Esteban Winsmore, the funniest videos on the internet. Please check them out.
Oh man, awesome! No, those videos are pretty funny. But Cody, can't wait to have fun in Seattle, and I can't wait to hear about all your amazing experiences that you have at TI4. And good luck, Steven, playing. Who's he playing right now? He's playing Cats right now?
He's playing Paulo.
Paulo, good luck, man. Playing Call. I heard you just 7-pulled, if that's actually true or not. I'm not sure.
No fear, man.
Exactly. But guys, for me, you can check out Deck Wars tomorrow, Valley Town Thursday. If you are Hearthstone fans, I'm going to be casting DreamHack Valencia from home with Reynad on Friday and Saturday. Actually, Reynad's going to be casting Thursday, but Friday and Saturday I'll be joining him. So check that out too if you're not watching TI or IEM also. IEM Shenzhen starts tonight, I believe. So tune into that if you want to catch some more esports. And if you want to watch the VODs because you missed the beginning of the show, check them out on youtube.com/ChanManV. You can follow all of us on Twitter at rlewisreport. Is it report or reports?
Reports.
Reports. At ChanManV, at Gosu Trolling, and at Steven_Bennell. And follow this channel if you enjoyed this show. You get notified anytime this show goes live or my stream goes live. But that's going to be it for Unfiltered, guys. We'll see you next week. Later.
All right, well, cheers.
Peace.